Newmarket School Board. And we'll begin this meeting as we do well others with the Pledge of Allegiance. Lila, if you could lead us in that, I would appreciate it. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we have a special item on the agenda. We're holding a public hearing on a special town meeting warrant article. And that article states that to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of up to $498,255 to be added to the School Improvement Capital Reserve Fund previously established. The sum is to come from additional adequacy funds in the amount of up to $498,255. The district has been informed it will receive during the 2021-22 school year. No amount to be raised by taxation. I would like to encourage anyone to make a comment on the warrant article if they'd like to at this time. So we'll open up public comment on the warrant article.
I think you have to formally open the public hearing. You open the meeting.
I thought I did.
think you have to formally.
So I formally open the public hearing at 7:02, and I will read the warrant again to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of up to $498,255 to be added to the School Improvement Capital Reserve Fund previously established. The sum is to come from additional adequacy funds in the amount of up to $498,255. The district has been informed it will receive during 2021-2022. No amount to be raised by taxation. Now that we have done that, we will open the floor for public comment based on the warrant article. People can feel free to come to the mic. I see no comment. I'll leave it open for another minute. I see no one coming. So I'm assuming that per the rules, and Jenny, you can tell me that we can close the public hearing at this point. Do we have to leave, since there are no other further comments to be heard? Right. Perfect. Just want to make sure I didn't mess it up. Hearing that there's no further public comment, we'll close the public comment at 7:03 p.m. And as we did not have any amendments or adjustments to the meeting, I would suggest that we move to approve the warrant article as written. I seek a motion to do that. We have a first from Ms. McKinney. Do we have a second to approve the motion?
Second.
The warrant as written. We have a second from Mr. Swanson. Any discussion further? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's approved. And now we will move to the regular business meeting with public comment on agenda items at this point. Hearing none of that, we will move to reports. The first report is the student report by Lil. If you'd like to proceed, thank you for doing this for us.
Of course. Yesterday, the boys varsity soccer team performed very well. They won 6-2 in their game against Farmington. Their next game is tomorrow, the 8th, at 4 o'clock in Sunapee. This past Monday, the girls varsity soccer team won 4-0 in their game against Sandhorn. Their next game is also tomorrow in Sunapee at 6 o'clock. Our varsity cross-country team is also doing extremely well. In their Manchester meet yesterday, they placed 3rd. Their next race is this Saturday, the 9th, in Dover. The varsity football team is on a winning streak. Their next game is this Saturday, 2 o'clock at Epping High School. Last Saturday's homecoming carnival, orchestrated by the high school student council, was a great success. The ice cream truck in particular was extremely popular among students. The National Honor Society will be walking in the Lincoln Street Breast Cancer Awareness Walk this October 24th. The Interact Club has collaborated with the 8th grade to donate over 100 handmade cards to the Send a Smile Foundation, which is a charity which sends uplifting messages to hospital patients. And finally, this is a little bit outdated by now, but make sure to check out the new gardens at the main entrance of the high school, courtesy of our student environmental team, Net Zero. And that is it for me.
Thank you very
Right.
much.
Awesome.
Could we make Lola our spokesperson from now
I
on?
think we
Because
should.
I think you nailed it on that one.
She'll be able to. We'll make use of her. Now that we know you have these skills, that's how it works here at Newmarket. Moving to discussion items, the first thing is the suicide prevention plan. Erica McNeil, the Director of Student Services. Erica, if you'd like to lead us through that, we'd appreciate it.
I'm not really sure how we're gonna follow that up. Erica McNeil, Director of Student Services and Integrated Treatment Student Design School Social Worker. And if you've had a chance to review part of our protocol, she is our district coordinator when it comes to our suicide protocol. The suicide law came into place last April, and we have a new policy that addresses that law. And as part of that policy, we've done we drafted that up. We actually had a lot of these documents already in place.
You want to switch it with mine?
Thank you. We had a lot of these in place, but a lot of it is just making sure that we've hit all of the areas that our policy requires. We also have additional documents that are more internal facing, additional resources for staff, including things like books that are age appropriate if we have to talk about grief with students, and just all those other pieces that we wouldn't put as our official protocol, but additional resources that we have internally. Do people want to go through this piece by piece? Do we want
What are our thoughts, board
Overview.
members?
Hi.
I think so,
Sure.
too.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with Caitlin, who's our coordinator, and she can kind of begin.
So I will be the district suicide prevention coordinator. And what that means is developing and maintaining cooperative relationships, such as with Connors Climb, which is a local suicide prevention organization that we've used for our suicide prevention training. Will be 2 years this year. Maintaining relationships with Seacoast Mental Health, which is our local mental health provider, and developing in this plan, basically. Along with that, we will have the building suicide prevention liaisons. Those will be Amanda Keene at the elementary school and Amanda Nieves at the high school. They're both part of the counseling staff, so they're well equipped to do that. And then the other big pieces are an annual staff training. That's 2 hours each year that our staff will be trained on spotting suicide, signs of suicide, depression symptoms, and things such as that, as well as proactive things that we can do, such as social emotional learning, to prevent things like that. We will be adding this plan to our student handbook, and I will be on the handbook committee to make sure that it gets on there. And then every 2 years, myself and Erica, as well as the prevention liaisons, will review this plan and make sure that everything's up to date, that we have the most useful resources on here, because part of it is including signs, symptoms, things to look for, as well as resources that people can use.
The next steps of this is going through the procedures if we see a threat in the building, what our school personnel will do, what our counseling staff will do, what our administrators will do. So it's a real, straightforward, this is the nuts and bolts. If the situation arises, you come to this and you know exactly what your role is. Kind of keep going through this piece. We also added in a piece about confidentiality, to make sure that when we're addressing these things, we're doing so in a thoughtful and confidential manner for students and families.
And then our last piece is the suicide risk warning signs, behaviors associated with depression, situations that can lead to depression, behaviors associated with suicide, and most importantly, protective factors that we can work to develop and build upon so that we do not have students in this situation. And finally, we have national and local resources for suicide prevention.
Thank you guys for doing this. As we all know, SEL is top of mind, as it always should be, but even more now than later. So I appreciate having this detailed information on hand, so we all know what the responsibilities are.
And all this information will be on the website too, if a parent doesn't know where to go.
Yes,
Yes.
so part of this procedure is to include this on our website so that parents have access, teachers have access, everyone will be able to access this document.
And do you have a direct line into Seacoast Mental Health so that, because there is such a backlog for these kids to get therapy? Like, are we gonna?
So we have a partnership with Seacoast Mental Health, and we have I think it's 2 days in each building, right, at this point. So we have 2 separate counselors who come in, and we provide space for them. It's their outside counseling, so it's not a school-based counseling, but it's like going to the clinic. So there's 2 days at the junior senior high and 2 days at the elementary school. What that does is really help provide access to our families and our students, because then they can go down for their session, go right back to class without having to potentially miss school, leave the building, drive to Exeter or Portsmouth, whichever location they're going to. And we've had a relationship with them since before I started here. So we've continued that relationship. We did do that through Zoom last year. We found that Zoom wasn't as effective. So last year when I brought forward the SEL plan, we included that they would allowed to be back into the buildings, because as we know, mental health has really come to the forefront, especially in the past year and a half, 2 years, if it wasn't already. We also have utilized them in the past for any crisis where we need additional counseling. So they do have
A response team.
a response team, and they can come in with additional counselors and help support our staff, our students. And they're also working on a mobile crisis plan right now, which is, we told them that we would be willing to pilot that with them so that they would bring in teams if we have students who are potentially at risk.
Any other questions?
This is amazing. You did a lot of work. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
With
you.
the board's permission, I would like to amend the agenda and go ahead and I seek a motion to approve the suicide prevention plan that was just presented. We have a motion from Mr. Swanson with a second from Mr. Hamaker. Thank you very much for this work. We'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's approved. The next thing is a presentation from Susan regarding the junior senior high interim coverage plan and stipend positions.
Yeah, so in your packet, I provided an overview of the situation, which you're all very familiar with. We have a labor shortage, and we have some openings in some key areas that we have been unable to fill. And as much as we advertise and we try to be creative, and we will get a few applicants. I mean, we have had a couple of applicants for the guidance counselor position. However, they don't even have, a college degree. So we don't have any qualified candidates that have come before us. And if we've had anyone, they're scooped up before you can go through a hiring process. So we find ourselves here with unmet needs, and we tried to think creatively about how can we at least cover a corner of the base in many areas, using the staff that we do have. And so I met with the junior senior high school administration, and this is the way we thought we would try to address some of our needs by modifying what some people are doing. This is not, by doing this, we're not going to meet everybody's needs. I mean, I just want to be clear, you can't be down this many staff members and provide the same level of service. But at least we can try to assign coverage in certain areas so that there's somebody that will be attending to some really important needs that we have. So what we're thinking is that if we could have an athletic coordinator to help do some of the operational things that can be done after school hours, and free up Ms. Callanan, who is got a lot of experience in both administration and in the guidance and counseling area, that she could handle some of the issues that we have and vacancy shuffling that we'll need to do, at the junior, senior high school in that office. So that would mean she would need to be coming in early in the day, as opposed to her position was designed with the idea that she'd be doing a lot of after-school and off-school hours, but you can't stretch a human being in all directions. And so we thought, well, what pieces can we chunk that can be done after school, and then offer a stipend, and if a teacher wants to make a little bit of money to do certain things they can do off hours, then that would be helpful. So that was kind of what our thinking was. If we can chunk this in ways to kind of, offload some of the things she's currently doing, that would be helpful. So the way it would look again is that we would have an athletic coordinator to do some of those operational types of things, like scheduling and rescheduling, updating the website. When games are canceled and then they have to be changed, then that stuff all gets, kind of coordinated in the backside. Attending some regional meetings, helping with, coordinating, getting the payroll, and, calling officials and getting the officials lined up for the various games. And when the games change, making sure that the officials, know where they're going. So that kind of behind-the-scenes type of stuff would be involved. And we felt that $2,500 per season, seemed to make sense. So, the fall season is over, so we would, for the most part, so it would, by the time we could get this posted, it would be 2 seasons. And then intramural activities and a program coordinator. This has kind of to address 2 issues. We really don't have a middle school program here. And it's, most of the programming we have is designed around the needs of the high school, and then whatever is available for time and resources, then, the middle school's kind of, in some ways, an afterthought. And the needs of kids at the middle school level aren't being attended to. And we see kids act out in ways that isn't surprising to me in some ways, because we're not really attending to their developmental needs. So, so this position we gave a lot of thought to, and it's to have a separate person to do intramural activities and program coordination specifically for the middle school. I look at things like we had a great Spirit and Homecoming Week for the high school. We have all kinds of things going on for the high school. In most schools, you see all kinds of exploratory opportunities provided for kids at the middle school level, which is super important for them as they, try to navigate this shift from an elementary school kind of experience to starting to become a little bit more independent and needing the supports in order to be able to be successful in meeting those expectations, both socially and academically and emotionally and civically. And so without having, some programming and exploratory opportunities for kids and things that they can look forward to that are designed around their needs, it's a real shortfall in what we're doing. This position you'll see in the upcoming year budget, because we need to start to address the needs of the middle school students here. And I'm not saying it means that we have to, I think we can look at different ways that we're using our money, as opposed to necessarily like creating a kingdom over there, but we need to address their needs. So this is a step in that direction. So we're looking at this being a stipend of $6,000 annually. Obviously, part of the year's gone already, so it'd be prorated based on when and if we could find somebody that'd be willing to do that. But what they would be doing is developing, organizing, and implementing intramural sports, which is currently and historically been done by the athletic director. It's more of a junior high model. And it really should be more intramural and skill building and exploratory. Kids at that level should have the opportunity to try many, many things to see if they have an interest in it. It shouldn't be about winning, it should be about exploring different opportunities. And so having somebody that's coordinating that and focusing their attention on that. And it's not just sports, it's activities. There should be a drama club. There should be a play that's coming out of your middle school. There should be things like that. There should be spirit activities. There should be all kinds of different events that are geared towards their needs. They would also oversee club programming. It's really important that, again, this is part of exploratory, having chess clubs and robotics clubs and little things like that that they can start dipping their toes into to see, what might be of interest to them, so that by the time they get to the high school and you're having conversations with them about what their needs are, as, rising freshmen, that they've had a few experiences to know what might be interesting to them. And so that's the type of programming that this position would be overseeing,
Can I interrupt?
Sure.
We have this college right down the street that actually has a rec department, like people for OT and all sorts of stuff. Can we reach out to them and see if maybe we could do an internship, if it's a paid internship, or get students involved at UNH? I mean, is that something we could?
Well, one of the things we've explored amongst many is trying to get any interns for any positions. And what we do, you don't even hardly get a phone call back. We were recently trying to address the counseling through getting an intern. We were fortunate to get a social worker that's with us a couple of days a week in both schools. And she happens to be, fortunately for us, a licensed social worker, and she's looking to be able to get certification specifically in the school environment, but she is a licensed social worker, so she can. But they're not there. I mean, every one of us around the state are grappling, to try to get anyone in our doors to help us. So it just, so we're trying to look at what is possible and what might make sense. We have middle school teachers that are chomping at the bit to have a middle school program. And I do believe that there'll be people that are interested in filling these roles. And I think it's good to have somebody that's a if possible, doesn't have to be, but a middle school teacher there, because I think they're familiar with what's going on at the various grade levels and teams. And, we've got that STEAM program, and, understanding what they're trying to accomplish there, and then being able to have these extension activities available after school, is really will change the culture and the vibrancy of what's going on there. So this is like a step, and so we're trying to take a challenge and create an opportunity to improve in some ways with the limited resources we have. So for that, like I said, it would be an annual stipend of $6,000, prorated based on whenever we do the hiring. And then Ms. Callanan, who is doing the sports component of the junior high, would be relieved of that. And some of the things we would assign her is to be the 504 coordinator and liaison at the junior senior high, to assist with the master schedule development and course selection for both the middle school and the high school. Historically, the middle school schedule has been done pen and paper as opposed to leveraging the software. Ms. Callanan is really proficient at using Infinite Campus, the software that we use. She used in her prior school district, and so kind of modernizing that process would be something that she would be able to help us with this year. Organize and coordinate all of our academic testing. As of Friday, we will not have an assistant principal for academic services, and testing goes throughout the year, and we've had her involved in helping us administer the testing at the secondary level. We want to make sure that is done well, and that doesn't fall through the cracks, because there's so many other pieces that our administration is being pulled away to do because we're short-staffed. So she would take on that, and then support other student counseling needs as time permits. And so that's what we would like to do, and we would need the board's support for these new stipended positions. Another thing that we're doing, we haven't had much luck getting game administrators, so I had Jody reach out to school districts around to see, are we underpaying? It's really tough, because after school right now, you can go and work down at Home Depot you know, make $15, $16, $17 an hour. So trying to convince somebody to do some of these jobs after school when they can go someplace else and make, you know, more money for a couple of hours is increasingly difficult to get interest. So, so we would be increasing the game administrator amount to see if that's gonna help, or we're
Is that
thinking.
like the referees and things?
They go to the game, there has to be somebody at the games, and you can't be at every single game, every single place. So the game administrator, and we've always had, this is not new, we've had game administrators, and they would go and, make sure, when visitors arrive, you go here, if there's cones for soccer that need to be out, that they're out on the field, that they check and make sure the scoreboard is working and operable, things like that. So that's called a game administrator. So right now they're getting, we've been offering $35 per game, and we just don't have staff. Even the staff that were doing it last year, some were burnt out and tired, and it was a tough year last year. And others are doing other things. We've got a whole crew of new people, but $35 for one game is not attracting them. So we'd like to raise that to $50, or if you do a doubleheader, $100 per game. See if that helps. We're looking at the same thing for substitute teachers, raising the short-term sub rate up to 100 and see if that attracts candidates, because we're not getting any bites there either. And we've had people that have been on our short-term sub list before who have left to go work in not other school districts, but doing other jobs locally, because the pay rate has increased in hourly positions all around us. So those are some of the things that we're gonna try to do. I mean, we're not looking for new positions there. We're just gonna make some adjustments and see if that helps us. But tonight, what's before you is these two kind of coordinator positions, one for the high school athletics and the other one for the middle school intramural piece.
Andrew, did you have a question?
I just went with the, creating the, intramural, for, junior high school, for the teachers that take on clubs and all that, will we do you anticipate offering stipends for them, or is it?
They do have, this is messy, and I don't totally understand who's getting paid for what, but we did do a survey recently to learn that, Dave and his team and us as well. There are some clubs there at the junior high. Some people are being paid and other people are not. Why that is, I don't know. Teachers do a lot out of the goodness of their heart that go unrecognized, and it's kind of baked into our DNA, I think, as educators, I would offer. We've got a few of them out here in our audience tonight. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be compensated, and certainly if you have somebody that's coordinating it, that would help, an awful lot to be able to address that. So there are some teachers that do offer clubs that are being paid, and like I said, others that have been offering things without pay.
Do you anticipate that with this coordinator position, we can kind of hopefully clean that up and then start figuring out how the teachers can be compensated if they aren't?
I think that there is a desire, both for teachers and for the administration, to try to get their arms around, what compensation should look like, and how do we go about establishing clubs, and what is appropriate compensation depending on the type of responsibilities that are there. Right now, I believe, and I think Lila could speak to it, but I believe that middle school kids, if they want to be involved in drama, for example, they're involved with the high school. There isn't a separate drama for middle school, but I could be.
Typically, under normal circumstances, that would be the case. However, this year, due to COVID protocol, we're not allowed to include the middle school members, so.
Yeah.
We
So-
generally would be competing.
Another example of, lost opportunities. And here, one of the things that we have made a conscious effort to do is to invest in the arts. We had, when I started, we had a 0.6 position at the, 0.7 position at the elementary school for music, and not music, but for band. And then at the middle school, we had 0.2, and at the high school, we had, literally nothing. So we built this program to nowhere. and because of other challenges that we had, you know, those kids didn't get their needs met unless they went for an ELO or something like that. So we've made an effort to be able to do that because those aren't options available to kids at SST. They can't get that elsewhere. They can't get co-curricular and those types of activities elsewhere. Those have to be provided here locally. And so, you know, it is an area that we need to focus attention on. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that with middle school. In my prior school district, we had a program that was available, all kinds of different exploratory activities that were largely based on student interests, you know? And there were different different offerings every single, we had trimesters, which is typical for a middle school. You have trimesters, not semesters. But we had each trimester, we had different offerings. So kids could try certain things in one trimester, and then the next trimester try something else. So there's, you know, it really is part of a vibrant middle school program. So I think they would look at all of that.
The research, the correlation between the students' activities outside of school with like being part of clubs and success in the classroom is really amazing.
Mhm.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other thoughts? I would seek a motion to approve the junior senior high coverage plan and stipend positions. A motion from Mr. Rant, we need a second. Second from Mr. Hamaker. Any discussion? Thank you for thinking outside the box on these, Susan, and really finding ways to enhance the program, especially for the middle schoolers. Anything else? We'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. The next thing, Susan, is enrollment.
Yes, so as promised, you know, October 1 is the official date for enrollment. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
So our data person, Bob, sent the enrollment numbers over. I plugged them into our chart so that you could see them in relation to prior years, and then I use this information to do a little forecast for what you know, is likely to be the numbers we would see when we open school next year. One of the things I noticed, and I think you'll notice if you go down to the bottom, it says overall change, and you can see that there's a decreasing number over time, and some of that, you know, is I would argue is somewhat COVID related. I looked at, because families in New Hampshire, if they'd like to homeschool, all they're required to do is send the superintendent a letter saying that I'm going to homeschool. You know, sign it and send it off. There's no requirement for them to provide a curriculum or any evidence that their children are receiving any
New
education.
Hampshire and Texas.
So all of that has to come to me, and so I had asked Patty if she would work with the registrars in the two schools to see what do those numbers look like, you know, over the last 5 years, and is the decrease in any way related to that? And so it doesn't explain all of it, but certainly some of it. And so for homeschooling, typically we'd see about 35 annually. That's what the average is. The 3 years before COVID was 35. And last year it was 71, so more than double what was typical. And this year 55, which is still higher, 20 students higher than what is our average. So there is a relationship that appears between some of the numbers that are decreasing and those that have opted to homeschool. So I just wanted to share that with you. It's not on the sheet there because I was trying to make sure that what I was looking at was accurate. Since I feel like, you know, I've seen a lot of these applications and I didn't know prior to my arrival how many was typical. So I thought I'd share what I found with you. Of course, this number changes regularly. We have people moving in, you know, we have families that leave. But, year in and year out, we're required at the beginning of every year to report what our October 1 enrollments are, so that's what will be sent to the state. And so we'll be building our budget next year based on the projection. And we're looking like we'd have a few more kids at the elementary school. It looks like, the peak was in FY15 when we had 574. That was pre-building project. And the numbers, have declined, a bit, and then COVID hit, and you can see in FY21 at the elementary school, you see 496, which was, a departure from FY20. And a lot of that is, again, not all, but a lot of that is also explained by homeschooling choices. And then, again, this year, we still have some families that are looking to homeschool there, but the numbers were lower. From what we projected at the elementary school, I think there was 8 more students at the elementary from what last year's projection was, so which isn't off that far, spread across, the grade levels. So, not anything wildly different, and over time, the forecast will get sharper and sharper as patterns emerge in any kind of consistent way, and right now they're not. So at the middle school, you'll see we're anticipating 17 fewer at the middle school, and you can see that, when kids come up from the elementary school to the 6th grade, the numbers aren't significantly different. The pattern seems to be that the same number, and it's not the same individuals, by the way. Of course, families are moving in and out, so it's kind of odd that you would see those that graduate in the 5th grade, the same number of peers, but that seems to be the pattern here. But what you'll see is that this year's 6th grade, there's 78, and next year we're anticipating 67. And that's simply because the 5th grade at the elementary school is smaller than it has been in recent years. So that's really, just shifts related to the population that's coming through. And then at the high school, we're looking at maybe, 3 less. There's shifts in grades, and again, this is largely because smaller classes are coming up to higher grade levels, rising up, so that's really the projection, and that's what we'll base our budget proposal on.
Any questions?
I guess I'm trying to formulate my question. I guess I'm wondering, so we don't know how many students have left district or moved into district or moved out. Because I'm thinking, so if in 8th grade, we know we have problems with our 8th to 9th grade math and our transition 5 to 6. And I think it's hard to know how much of that has to do with the educational opportunities and services we're giving if we're not looking at the same kids. So if we don't know, I assume we're not tracking on a per individual basis how they do year to year in math or in.
Yep, we do that.
So then we can factor out kids who have moved out of district to ensure that the data we're comparing year to year is the same population?
No, we don't, no, I've never seen that done.
Well,
But-
because if
but-
you
but
had,
this- For the students that are here, we know what their data was this year, and then if they're here next year, we'll know what their data looks like next year. But if a student leaves, we don't track that data, or we don't look at averages or anything. I'm not really sure what you're,
well, I guess, so if we have, one year we have a group of really proficient math kids, and then, say 10, and then 5 of them move out, and 5 other kids move in, and we're looking at the average of this class and the average of that class, there's gonna be a skew, right? Data's not gonna be.
That, like, if, like, let's say, like, those 5 kids get accepted to Phillips, Exeter, and then, like,
Or move to Maine or whatever, yeah.
And like that, you would assume that those could
I'm wondering if we're taking that into account, because if the data you presented us, I think it's the averages of classes one year to the next, but we don't know if the population of kids in these classes are the same. So it seems like it would skew kind of our results.
Well, really what we're trying to look at, in my opinion, more importantly than what the score is what the growth is for the students that we have, right? That's really what our focus
I think we use the
is.
score to determine growth in some ways.
Right, but if they leave, we're not, we're no longer looking at their growth. So, and when we look at student growth, we're not looking at what the average is in the class, we're looking at the growth of the student, each student that's in there.
So we are doing it per student then, based on.
We do it like, the teachers will, we just did some testing, and the teachers will get data on all the students in their classroom. You know what I mean? And they'll look at that, and they'll say, oh, okay, there's certain concepts that the kids are, got solid, and there's, some kids that didn't, and, there's some topics that we need to, review again. So, yeah, no, we look on a regular, individual basis for kids and how they're performing. We use that to inform instruction. So we're looking forward to having the results of the testing that took place over the last couple of weeks. That'll benchmark us, and then what we look at is we'll do additional testing in the spring, and then what we're looking at is the growth that's taken place over the course of time. But
And that's
teachers
a stat,
look
and
at
that's
data
a static
regularly.
population because we're in 1 year. But I guess when we looked at the data previously, it was between years, and I was wondering how that gets factored into it, that the population in one class to the next may change.
Yeah.
So that the student's actually doing the testing.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I've just, it's,
I think sometimes when we looked at it, we've looked at a cohort of students. So we look at the first grade team and what they're doing in the first grade, and then take them to the second grade team, so we can see the growth in the overall group and the individuals.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as opposed to comparing first grade A with first grade B the next year, because they're two different groups of kids.
And I guess you're bringing my point exactly, because if we have first grade, if we have a cohort, and then the cohort changes, but doesn't move up a grade, and we're trying to compare, well, they did really well here, they did poorly in this year, we don't know if it's because the individuals in the cohort have changed.
Well, you can look at subgroups. So we do
You know
this,
what I
we
mean?
don't present all this stuff publicly, but we dissect it into subgroups, and
Oh, okay.
we see at what level of proficiency, for example. We might provide you in the aggregate,
Yeah.
but
Oh.
we're breaking it down to see, are fewer students there. And we could dial it all the way back to see who they are, but the data, it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish by looking at the data that you're looking at, right? Some things we look at a high level just to say, hey, it looks like kids are with horizontal and vertical alignment. We can see the growth in the students over time. Sometimes you'll get a student group that doesn't perform as well, in certain areas, and perform even higher in other areas, so there's a bit of a personality to some of the groups that go through. But it depends on what you're looking for, right? When we use it, most data is used to inform instruction, right? That's what we're usually using it for. What the state and politicians like to use the data for, which is usually what you see, is some of these higher performance measures, that are more aggregated. But we do have the ability to disaggregate that, and, we try to understand it and find ways that, it can inform what we're doing. But yeah, there's changes. I would say too that, a student could be performing very, very well, and then could have some traumatic experience that happens, and their scores, and their ability to perform can decline in a way, and so there's a lot of factors that play into, the degree to which students are, and pace with which they're able to learn.
I guess my thought is, we put all this, not a lot, but a lot of time, research, and money into this great new program. It would be a shame if we then stepped back and looked at it and said, oh, well, we've been doing it for 3 years, and then 4th to 5th is still seeing a decline, but that decline's because 10 kids came in who were learning a completely different way, That's just what I'm trying to make sure is that we're
Yeah, well, it
taking
usually.
that factor into account.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and I I guess it's not how we use the data, and mostly we spend the time trying to look at subgroups and individual student growth and things to help us, better support the needs of the kids.
And aren't there concept checks within that math program?
Yeah.
Like, that'll say Kim Shelton could get to this point, but you can't get to this point, so we need to focus on where Heather might be
Right.
5 steps ahead. So I think we're doing that rather than just waiting, 3 years from now to see we'll
Oh,
see
yeah, of course,
results
I was just.
more immediate.
I was just-
Yeah, you're just talking more philosophically, and yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it's not something that we really try to break down and identify, 5 kids that were high performers went out, and so therefore, because mostly we're trying to use it to gauge, growth. So, but in terms of our math program, I mean, this is a new math program, and it's in a completely different kind of philosophy. And so this year, we're all learning, teachers are learning, everybody's learning together, the administration, and we're taking training, they're taking training, lots of training tomorrow. So we're all learning, and as we're learning, we're not gonna necessarily get everything perfect, but usually takes a couple of years to get into a rhythm for something like this. But in the end, students will have, some connections in ways that they didn't have, from kindergarten all the way through their secondary experience. So we're really excited about that. I think for the most part, although it's hard, and when you go through changes and you feel overwhelmed, it may not feel like fun or all of that. But I think in hindsight, as we look back, and we get our legs under us, that we're going to see students succeeding in ways that they weren't previously. So you're right. There's a little bit of ramp up time. There's our own getting our legs under us piece to that, but we're all headed in the same direction, and we know that what we're doing in first grade is going to lead into what the needs are and expectations are in the second grade, and so on. So.
Any other thoughts? Susan, thank you for that information. The next discussion item is the school board meeting time. There's been a question about, we've been having the majority of meetings at 5 o'clock, and there was a question if we should modify that till 7 o'clock. Andrew asked to have it put on the agenda, so that's right there, so we can discuss it and sort of get our feelings about that.
And just so where I'm coming from, I had 3 people within 2 weeks make a comment, and I had no idea that the meeting used to be at 7 o'clock. So I was more figured out exactly what the history was and why it was at 5 o'clock. There's no underlying. I was trying to educate myself.
If I recall correctly, I think that the change was made during COVID time.
Yeah. Because I think we were all going to bed early because of COVID.
Yeah, everybody was at home, so 5 o'clock time made sense. I think my concern is that some parents or members of the community may not be able to get to 5 o'clock meetings now that things are returning a little bit more to normal. Personally, I prefer 5 o'clock because I would rather do my meetings early so I can get to bed early.
Yep.
But I'm wondering if we should consider moving it later so that we give more members of the public an opportunity. And I don't know if it has to be 7.
If I might be so bold, I think part of the problem is that the town website is listing it as one time, and the school website is listing it as another time. When it was at 5 o'clock, the town website, and I go onto the town website to log on, and it was listed as 7 o'clock, so I'd log on to the town at 7 o'clock, and I'd be catching the last of the meeting. Tonight's meeting was listed on the school website as being at 7 o'clock. On the town website, it was listed as being at 5 o'clock. I got home at 10 minutes to 7 to look at it, logged on, and it comes up, no scheduled meetings on the town website. So part of the difficulty is just that.
Communication.
That really disrupted communication. It's really hard for somebody who's not a parent, who doesn't get a daily whatever from the school system to know when it's happening. Because, I've been on the school board. I try hard to follow it. And it's been really, really difficult because of that inconsistency and going back and forth. And I thought I had it figured out. That's why I came in late, because I had seen that there was supposed to be a hearing about the budget, and I wanted to be here for the vote. And
I honestly don't know where the information on the town website comes from. I didn't even know our information was on the town website, so I will look into.
yeah, and
I don't know
sometimes it's on there.
Yeah.
Sometimes they list it on their Friday newsletter that they send out, and sometimes they don't. If they've got too much else, they don't list the upcoming meeting. So that would help for those of us who are.
Yeah, I don't know who does that. We don't do it.
But somebody from the school needs to contact them and
No,
say,
I will.
yeah.
I didn't know about
And-
it.
I would say Wendy.
Yeah.
So, for what it's
But I'm
worth.
just saying, I don't know where she gets her information from. Because I mean, Steve knows, because Steve's I copy him on most things, but that doesn't mean that he's responsible for doing, I just don't know. I'll find out. Thank you.
It's almost too bad there's not like a shared Google Calendar that's populated on the website, like.
Ours is.
Yeah,
I don't know. I will find out, though. I don't know how that whole thing works, but I will learn.
Young kids, if you weren't on the school board or trying to go to meeting, with 6 o'clock, really not work because of dinner, 5 o'clock because of bath times and all that. I mean,
Where I'm kind of coming from is, one of the goals I think I was hoping for this year, I like the earlier time. I like it for the administration and the teachers. I'd like to see the principal of both schools and the admin team coming and being able to do presentations. The end of their school day, and then how long they have to wait around to come and do a presentation. 7 o'clock or even 6 o'clock, so every 2 weeks, it just seems kind of late for those educators. I like and I've enjoyed seeing the principals and the administration and teachers show up and, voice their support or concerns when it comes to their positions and their jobs. And I worry that if we move the meetings too late, we may be losing the interest and the attention and, audience of the teachers themselves. It's easy for the general public to run home, throw something on the stove, they've got it on the TV, they're watching it. But for our educators to expect the building principals or anything to come at 7 o'clock when they get out of school at whatever, and do they have an opportunity to go home and change, or do they have to sit around here? I'm just thinking of the teachers and having access, especially with the staffing levels that we've got right now. I'm not opposed to it at some point, but I think I personally feel that the teachers and the building admins, I'd like to see them get home past, 8 o'clock. Every 2 weeks.
I agree with that.
Other than the email we received, has anyone else been talked to?
I've seen some posts on Facebook about the times, and I don't know if it's more confusion or,
Yeah.
I should say social media.
I'll look into why that is, to make sure that it's clear. I know on our website that it's done in a Google Doc and, and so things feed out from that, but our website isn't, I don't even think it's the same product as the town.
It's not. I
So
don't think.
I honestly, I didn't even know our stuff was showing up there, other than I knew that there was a link from the town to get to the school website, but other than that, I didn't realize that. So we'll look into it and we'll figure that out. I know too, I appreciate what you're saying, I know Dave Dalton leaves his house at 5:30 in the morning every day. And I wouldn't expect them to be here unless there's a reason to do a presentation. Certainly, I try to protect their time as much as I can. because I know also that they're getting phone calls in the evening like I do and on weekends and all of that. When we had it at 7, the participation wasn't, because this is a meeting to conduct the business of the board. And if residents have, questions and things, generally speaking, they contact board members or they contact the office to offer thoughts on that. So, it really is about what works best for, the board. And at the time that COVID hit, Mike pulled the board to see what time made sense to them, given that the business needed to be conducted. And the consensus of the board at that time was that 5 o'clock was what met the needs of the board members there. And that's when it got changed. And I've seen board meetings be at 5 or 6. Tonight it's at 7 because we had a public hearing and we want to make sure that people, could, and when we have our special town meeting, it'll be at 9. And we try to do, when you're seeking public hearings, which are different than school board business meetings, you want to make sure that the times are conducive to that. We have Willa here, I don't really want her to be here at, 8 or 9 o'clock at night either.
Why are you
and-
on a school night?
So,
And I also.
it really is, when we're doing board business, it's about us doing the board. It's not a public hearing.
Well, I mean, it
So-
sounds like the consensus is 5 is what everybody's
Yeah.
comfortable with, so,
Yeah.
Can I make one suggestion?
well, maybe not.
Could we have could we offer a time for public, comment at the beginning and then after the reports going to action items? So if anyone wanted to do a comment, that if they couldn't get here at 5 o'clock, because maybe us out of work, if they actually do that? Or are we so,
I mean, we could do it whenever, we could do it only at the middle, right?
And that's my only, like, this side of me. Like, my only concern is,
I mean, it's a good idea, actually.
We're no longer reading letters that are submitted to us. Are we in essence at 5 o'clock denying someone's ability to give public comment? Because it's one of the,
Well, I mean, school board members are usually the pathway to provide public comment. So if you have somebody calling you and saying, this is how I feel about that, then you take that information.
Yeah, but we changed the policy so we don't, school members don't give it to each other, we give it to the chair. I think is what the policy change was.
But I haven't seen,
Superintendent.
I haven't received anything about,
No, you haven't, but I'm saying if there is public comment.
right.
Well, the reason why we could
concern.
take public comment in writing is because that was allowed under the
Yeah.
emergency
Oh, yeah,
orders. And
absolutely.
the emergency
But I
orders
mean, it
expired
seems to
and
make
that is
sense
not.
If we're gonna do action items that we, and we can push the public comment just before then, it does provide the public with a little bit more opportunity to get here.
I mean, I definitely see what you're saying, but I guess if I was really feeling like there was an outpouring of people feeling like their voices were being silenced, that would be one thing. I don't think we're having that. And I'm not sure even, not that I wouldn't want to hear from the public, but if the purpose of us is to conduct business and we decide that 5 o'clock is the best time for us to achieve our business based upon what people have said, I think, and just like Ingrid right now, she's here. We took her comment off the comment time. That has not happened before, I don't think.
I'd be comfortable moving the comments to between the discussion and action items. But
and if I'm the only one that feels that way, that's absolutely fine. It's really coming from my more background in the civics area.
No, I
And
definitely.
Obviously, this is something that if we do get emails about, or people reach out to us, we can obviously revisit.
Yeah,
I just thought that.
definitely.
What it is that we should.
It's a great
Thank
idea.
you for bringing it up.
No problem. I think it's good for us to have this discussion so we're all on the same page with it. And, as you said, if it becomes an issue, or if we have situations like this where there's specific things that are germane to getting comment, we'll look at modifying those times. But for the regular business meetings, why don't we say they're gonna continue at 5 until otherwise.
That's all right.
Okay. We'll move to action items. And I'm gonna break out the minutes, because Elizabeth, if I am not mistaken, I did not think you were here on the 23rd.
I was not.
And we need to amend those minutes, Sarah, to take her off and change the So I seek a motion to approve the September 23rd minutes, amended to remove Ms. McKinney from them and to update the votes.
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. Swanson with a second from Ms. Durant. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All abstain, any
One
abstention?
abstention.
One abstention.
4 and 1. So then we will take, I seek a motion to approve the September 16th public and non-public minutes
So
and
moved.
September 30th minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion for Ms. McKinney. We need a second for that.
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Hemaker. Any amendments to those? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, they're approved. The manifest. Andrew, you look like the one, you're the winner.
Seek a motion to approve the manifest of $1,345,093.54.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Mr. Hemaker with a second from Ms. McKinney to approve the manifest as noted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The next thing is the second read of the policies that we read at the last meeting. I did not receive any input from anyone about those. Andrew, did you receive anything?
No.
Susan?
Nope.
I think we are set to approve those. And Susan, there are a few that I noted that the dates say revised, and assuming they're adopted, they would need to be changed to adopted at the end.
Yeah, for the new one, it would,
Right.
I'm trying to follow what you all have done in the past. It's a little different than what I've seen before, so I'm just trying to follow suit.
Okay.
So it looks to me, in general, that when it's adopted for the first time, it says adopted.
And
And
then
then after
revised.
that, it
Okay.
seems to say revised. Or if it was reviewed, but you didn't take any action, then it's reviewed and then the date so that you know
You're
when
right.
you looked at it last, but
I seek a motion to approve the policy changes as listed. Policy EBB, which is a modified safe school policy, policy JICD, modified discipline policy, JLCJ, modified concussion head injury policy, and the new suicide prevention policy, JLDBB.
So moved.
We have a motion from Ms. McKinney and a second from Mr. Rant. Any questions about those? Again, thank you to Erica for bringing us the background to the suicide prevention policy and that plan. We'll move to the vote of approving those. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Couple things. Andrew had requested, I had said last time that I was going to send out a short list of dates. As I sent you guys the email saying I was gonna wait till we find out the times. I'll take that the next couple days, so I'll be looking for that. As of now, our next meeting will be the 21st at 5 p.m. And at 8:04, I seek a motion to adjourn. We have a motion from Mr. Rant. We need a second.
I'll second. Nope, whatever.
Elizabeth McKinney is the second on that one. Thank you for a great meeting. We'll move to the vote. All those in favor of adjourning at 8:04, say aye. 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 Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.